the Latina Leadership Podcast, the podcast made for Latinas by Latinas, with Angelica Cázares, Carolina Arenas, Diana Ruby, Jacqueline Villagomez, and Sonia Ramirez. Get comfortable, amiga, and enjoy the conversations.
So hi everyone, thank you for listening in. My name is Carolina Arenas and I will be your co-host for today here at the Latina Leadership Podcast. As many of you have heard me in the past in other interviews or things that I've shared with you all, I'm very passionate about businesses that have incorporated their heritage into their business mission, and most importantly, that it has a social work component. So, with that being said, I am super excited and honored to introduce to you all our guest for today, Ms. Kayla Castañeda, which is the CEO and co founder of Agua Bonita, a first ready to drink version that has achieved widespread distribution in the US and the first Latina owned beverage brand to raise more than 1 million in funding. And that was read, but straight from our CEO herself. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat today.
Yes, porque we're gonna ask a lot today. No,
Okay.
but yeah. So, owner of Agua Bonita. I guess I like to start with a bit of your background as far as like where you grew up, and family dynamic too. If you're the young one, the oldest, stuff like that. If
Yeah.
you can share a little bit of that with us.
Yeah, so I grew up in a town called Hanford, California. It's in the Central Valley of California, so it's not like the sexy tech of the Bay or the sexy people of SoCal. We actually grow about 60% of the nation's produce within 100 miles radius of my home. So it's a lot of ag, a lot of like migrant farm workers, and that's how a lot of the Hispanic community like even settled here, my family included. So that's where I actually grew up, and that's where I live now, and where our company is headquartered. And then family dynamics, I'm the oldest, I'm the only daughter. I definitely feel that, like oldest daughter burden sometimes. But I love my younger brothers. I have three younger brothers, and yeah, and I'm definitely probably all the stereotypical like firstborn child
Old
kind of
Latina,
things. Yeah.
first gen,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, the reason why I asked that is because, again, I've been following you for quite some time now, and I just feel that a lot of your background or a lot of things that you did in your early, let's say, career or schooling, it helped me understand the entrepreneur that you are.
Mm.
So you lived in California, migrant from work family. When you graduated from high school, where did you decide to go to college?
Oh, I split out of here and I went to New York City. Um,
You
I
see?
like I wanted the exact opposite of what I had grown up with, and I couldn't think of anything more opposite than Hanford, than New York City.
To again, I when I read that about you, I was like, man, that takes a lot of courage and decision to, because geographically, Cali's like on the opposite side of New York. Like to visit family, it's not like, hey, I'm gonna drive to you for the
I was
weekend.
just talking about this too. Yeah, and
Yeah,
like
so that to me made me realize, like, man, it's that this woman, she has, you have this drive, honestly, where to make that decision, there has to be a push in you, I feel.
yeah,
So with that being said, so you went to New York, and then what happened there as far as like student or college, and
yeah.
where you thought at that time you were gonna take your career towards?
Yeah, I was going to school at a small private school. I didn't get into NYU. Like I so badly wanted to get into NYU and I did not get in, but I ended up getting into like a private school there, but I was one of only 5 like people of color at the whole school, and I just like didn't really fit in. And then I started working, and like very quickly, like after a couple years, I just was like, I love this city, but I don't like this school. And I tried to transfer back into like the California UC system, and it just like was not happening for me. So I started working, and at the time I thought that I was going to work in professional sports long term, because I actually had started working for the Yankees. And
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah,
Sorry, she's still in New
yeah,
York.
exactly, and I loved it, like, we grew up in a very, like, athletic family, um, but to, like, make ends meet, I was also, like, serving and, like, waiting tables and stuff, and that's really where I got exposed to, like, this whole world of food and beverage, like, I mean, New York is one of those, like, top tier culinary cities in the world, you know what I mean? And, like, I even took, like, an internship at a PR firm that was, like, had me on their wine and spirits accounts, and I just started learning so much more about like the food and beverage business. So even though in my mind I was like, yeah, I'm going to work in professional sports, like life was just like, I
Throwing
don't
things at
know.
you like, nope, that's not the way we're
Yeah,
going.
like, like you're just coincidentally going to get an internship that makes you learn about beverage, and you're just coincidentally going to like get offered a job your first day like at a restaurant, so stuff like that.
And what was your degree on? Or what did you graduate from?
I ended up not graduating, but I studied communications while I was at school. Yeah, so I didn't end up graduating.
So then with work and all of that, then you moved back to California?
Yeah, so I bounced around a few different cities because I worked for a few different baseball teams, and I always found myself on the like food and beverage side of the business though, still even working for these baseball teams. But then eventually I would start working with like some of Major League Baseball's partners. And one of those partners happened to be Coca Cola. And so I took a job back in California working for Coca Cola. And that's where I learned like a lot of the business of beverage, I'd say.
And then so then when does Agua Bonita grow? Or
Pretty soon.
first of all, okay, I guess I don't want to get ahead of myself. So Agua Bonita, if you translate, is beautiful water, right? So how do we get that name?
I wanted something that even non-Spanish speakers would be able to say and recognize and understand, right? And it's like agua bonita. Those are two words that I feel like everyone knows.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and then
Especially
also,
bonita.
yeah, and then it's just like a play off of like aguas frescas, and also this idea that we take kind of this like ugly fruit and make it beautiful, put it in this like beautiful can, and that this is like a really beautiful part of our culture, and yeah, just the beauty and everything.
And then for those that probably are not aware of what is aguas frescas, 'cause I'm,
Yeah,
I'm sure there's still people out there
there
that,
is.
haven't been exposed. Okay, what is agua frescas?
Yeah, so aguas frescas are a traditional Mexican drink, typically made with fresh fruit, non-sparkling water, and normally a lot of sugar. So agua bonita is a better for you version of aguas frescas. We use 80% less sugar, and our drinks also help support migrant farm workers.
And then with again, when you started the business and everything has gone, like I've seen your growth and it's amazing. But how was that journey? Or like I said, when did you get that spark of like, oh wow, like I've grown up with this at home. Like let me turn it into a business. Like when did that happen?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that just really aligned. Like my so I worked at Coke, learned a bunch of stuff, also realized that like I could probably be there for 60 years and never see an idea come to life. So then I
Mhm.
started consulting for like small food and beverage startups and really like got a taste of the startup life. um and then the pandemic rolled into town, and the companies that I was consulting for like overnight just kind of went out of business. So I had a lot of time on my hands. My mother-in-law was home from Mexico, and all of us were in the house all the time, and she was making us aguas frescas like every day. And then I was like, man, I just wish I could have this all the time. It reminds me of when my grandpa used to make them for us growing up. And then I was like, if I feel that way, I bet like a lot of other people feel that way. And then I started really looking into it, and it was just like, yeah, any agua fresca is like either homemade or a syrupy like fountain version that I would still need to like leave the house to get. And there's like, maybe if I just make a ready to drink version that people can buy and keep in their fridges, like that is such a simple but like huge
Mhm.
idea. And like a week later, I had the brand pulled together.
Oh man, yeah, you definitely nailed it. Honestly, with that idea, you definitely nailed it. Um, Now, there's like I said, there's a lot of things like I want to touch on migrant farm workers, but we'll get to that one. So having a cultural driven product,
Mhm.
I feel like sometimes that can be very difficult, but then it could also be a huge advantage, right? So what have you noticed in this field that you're in, right? Having a culture driven product, the positives and the negatives,
Yeah.
and if any of them, how have you, dealt with them, if so?
Yeah, I mean, I think on like the fundraising side and the like when we're in conversations to explain like the appeal of our product, like there's lots of people that are like, oh, okay, so this is for Latinos, right? And I'm like, well, I don't know, are tacos only for Latinos? Like, everyone likes tacos, right? So anyone
Yeah.
that likes Mexican food can like our drink. It's not just like targeted only to Latino and Hispanic consumers. And so making people understand like the market opportunity there, that it's like not just something that we're only like doing for Latinos is one thing. But then like on the other end of that spectrum, I always am like, even if I am only making something for Latinos, that's good enough. Like
Yeah.
we are like the largest ethnic cohort in the US, fastest growing, youngest, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
that
People
is
tend to
a
forget. Friendly
billion
reminder.
dollar, yeah, you know what I mean? Like I don't need to make something for anyone else if I didn't want to, you know? And so I think those are some of like the pros and cons when you have something that's so rooted in like heritage that like some people don't understand it, or they think like, oh, this is not for me because I'm not of the culture. And then the flip side is like, even if that's how I was wanting to be, like that's still a winning strategy.
Mhm. No, and I think you guys are doing an amazing job. Like, so I bought mine, my first one, my can at Whole Foods, which I'm happy to share with you. You guys were at eye level, eye level. It was easy to pick. It was perfect. But no, so going back to like the colors and obviously your marketing team is doing an amazing job, because when I've seen ads or like Instagram, like you can tell that you're representing not only Mexico, but I felt like all of Latin America, because when I see those pictures, I'm like, oh, that looks like a Dominican, that could
Mhm.
be a Colombian or like a Bolivian, so kudos to you that you guys are definitely doing a great job with that. But like I was mentioning, so there are negative parts, right? So being a small business, I don't like to say competition, because like I said, if like over here you can go to an area in one block, there'll be like five Mexican restaurants.
Mhm.
They're still building them, people are still going. You might want to get like a margarita in one of them, but the other one has like, the best carne asada.
Mhm.
So with you being a small business, how have you managed competition, or when people come out and imitate what product you have,
Yeah,
without mentioning names? Because again, I'm aware, I've
yeah,
noticed it, I didn't need to see or so
yeah,
that's what I'm trying to get at with that one.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, well, something
And
that
I'm
you
and I'm
just said,
asking and I'm asking it because I feel like that's something I've heard a lot from smaller businesses,
yeah,
right? So Latina
mhm,
entrepreneurs that are coming up, and let's say they created a t-shirt, right? And then they see it at a brick and mortar store and they're like, "Hey, that's something that I made." And unfortunately, they don't have like, an LLC or a trademark. So if you could give us some input on that, because I think a lot of us need
yeah.
advice on that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think something that you just said, like, you said kudos to your marketing team, stuff like that. Like, we don't have a marketing team. Like, it is just us, and like, yeah, it's our like head of creative, like me and him thinking about things that we want to put out that like feel authentic to us, and like feel like this is how we want to like present ourselves in the world. And I think that is like the biggest way to combat like copycats, is that like there's a level of authenticity that these like big corporations like can't quite nail, and it's because they ain't got it. They just don't. It's just not them, you know what I mean? And so I think that's a big part in like addressing competition, is like realizing like it's always going to be like a cheap imitation of what you're doing. And then I think also, like, from like a more like legal perspective and stuff, it's like, there are things that you just kind of have to like bite the bullet on, like, you know, getting your trademarks registered, like really understanding like how that whole process works. And, you know, there's lots of like online tutorials and things like that that are like worth the time to like try to navigate. But I mean, at the end of the day, especially in food and beverage, it is really easy to have, you know, your product imitated, but like that authenticity and like the way that you talk to your consumers is something that like someone else can't just come in and do. And so like lean into that, do more of that.
That's true. And then with, I know you have background, like you said, you worked in the industry, you were able to have like you were ahead of the game, right, when you started your business. But for somebody going into this industry, like food and beverage, what would you recommend they do, or reach out to, or things that helped you along the way?
Yeah. I would say for one, like, don't be afraid of like sounding stupid. Because even for like, as much as I knew about the industry, sitting in the founder seat was just a whole different ride, you know, and there was still so much to learn that even someone from the industry, like, there were so many terms, like, all these things that I just didn't know. And like, the only way to figure it out is like if you ask a lot of questions. So, like, don't be afraid to sound stupid, because it's better to understand something than to just like go along with it. So that's the number one thing. And then I would say, like, for food and beverage in particular, like, well, really any small business, like, find an accelerator program that is suited to your industry. For us, like, we did a CPG accelerator program pretty early on, and that helped us really kind of nail the basics, even as much as like how to pitch the company and stuff like that. And I'm still in touch with some of the mentors that like were with the program, and some of those mentors have helped bring in like additional capital, and like it just it just set up like um the groundwork for everything else that we were going to do, you know? So I would say like look into an accelerator program.
And then again, you've been able to raise a lot of funding, which is amazing. Um, how has that journey been for you as well? Because again, being part of networking groups, and having a small business myself too, how do you navigate, like, okay, yay, we got a grant, and then you get all happy, and then you apply to like five, six other ones, and you don't get anything. Like, how do you manage that?
Yeah. Well, you know, my fundraising journey is one that I'm proud of, because, you know, kind of getting that accolade of like first Latina to raise $1 million is great, but it's also very sad, because it's like it's already 2023. Like, why is this, you know, a level that is barely kind of being broken right now? And like comparatively to other beverage brands that are not owned by Latinas, like we've only raised half as much money as they have, even though we have like twice as much
Oh,
distribution,
wow.
you know? So it's one of those things that like it's tricky when you put the extra context to it, you know? And in terms of like how to navigate like getting that funding, you're gonna hear a ton of no's. Like, you can't take it personal, you know. And it's like, if you it is really easy to get discouraged, especially when you hear them over and over again. But like the only thing to do is to just like get up and like move on and try again, or like try something else. You know, there's been programs where like it took me um 3 different tries to get into the Target Accelerator program. And I did it year after year after year, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
just keep going.
yeah, I'm like, I'm just gonna do it. And, you know, I'm gonna connect on LinkedIn to the people that like run this program. I'm gonna show up for like every free webinar that they have. Like, I'm gonna make sure that they know my name and my brand, you know what I mean? And the next time that the application's open, I'm gonna send in an application, you know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
just persistence.
Has it been easy for you to find them?
Grants and things like that.
Hmm.
Um, I wouldn't say easy, but it hasn't been the most difficult either. I mean, it's
Okay.
incredibly time consuming. It can be someone's like full job. And like,
Yeah, I think that's what I've heard. Yeah.
yeah, and like when we first started, that was a majority of what I was doing, was trying to find money to like finance things. And I think as a founder, like your main job is to like find money to finance things, which is like a misconception I think a lot of people have. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things you kind of just have to always be looking.
Yeah. And then again, so I want to go back to migrant farm workers,
Mhm.
especially because again, it's a big deal for your brand and for your product. Um, so I guess we can educate some of our listeners as well. First of all, what is a migrant farm worker?
So, a migrant farm worker is an individual who works as manual labor on a farm seasonally. And so they often have to pick up and move whenever the season changes or the crops changes to wherever there is work available. That's the migrant part. It's different from being an immigrant farm worker. There is a difference between an immigrant farm worker and a migrant farm worker. But it also happens that oftentimes many migrant farm workers are also immigrants.
And then when you were growing up as a migrant, like part of a migrant farm working family, did you have to move a lot, or were you guys in one location?
No, I didn't have to move a lot. I have been given the like biggest like gift of life of not having to pick in the fields. I did not have to pick in the fields. The generations before me, I think, paid their dues to like improve life generationally, so that I wouldn't have to do that. But where we live is like there's so much agriculture that you can have a home base and still like work different
Working.
crops,
Oh,
you know what I
okay.
mean?
Oh, okay.
Or it's like maybe it's like 50 miles north, and then kind of like 50 miles south, kind of rotating around things. So I have had the good fortune, but off of like the hard work of my ancestors, to not have to move often.
So then all of like you said, you utilize, like your products come from migrant farm workers.
Yeah, I mean, I think every bit of food on everyone's plates in the United States, at some point in time, the
Goes all the way
probability of
back.
it, yeah, of touching a migrant farm worker's hands is like almost inevitable. Like I said, we grow 60% of the nation's produce right here in California. So it's like you have a 60% chance of anything that you touched, like being touched by a migrant farm worker that works here.
Okay. And then how do you decide the flavors that you wanted?
Oh, we wanted, really culturally aligned flavors. We did some very traditional ones like pineapple and agua de Jamaica. We have horchata coming out next year too, but
Ooh.
yeah, we're super excited about that one. But then we wanted stuff that, like, I don't know, is like of the culture, where it's like mango habanero and watermelon chile, where it's like everyone knows these flavors, but they're, a little bit more unique as far as aguas frescas go.
And then, like I said, I don't want to be like all over the place, but I'm getting the like little things here and there. So, being the oldest in your family, did that hinder or affect the way that your career trajectory like moved? Do you know what I'm saying? Because being the oldest, sometimes we have responsibilities that come to us at an early age, right? So I'm just wondering if that's something that you had to deal with, or
I still deal with it. Yeah, like I definitely, being the oldest and being the only daughter came with a lot of responsibility growing up. And I think that at times it felt like a very heavy burden. And then at other times I was grateful for it because it just changed my like state of mind when I was, entering into the like professional workforce and things like that. But I don't think that that's something that necessarily like goes away. I know like there's, a bigger movement now as we like are getting older and like healing our inner children and all that kind of stuff to like set more boundaries and stuff. And that's still things that I am working on. But I still feel like the responsibility to like take care of my family. And some of those ways is like not so positive, and then some of those ways is like incredibly positive. But yeah, but like even one of my brothers works for the brand, so it's like,
Nice.
yeah, it's still one of those things like getting bossed around by your big sister still.
That so how does that with the business then? How do you have like self-care techniques in place, or do you have like how do you separate it? You know what I'm saying? So that you don't get burnt out. Because again, like
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody, I really hope you guys follow and read up and follow the brand because it's been a fast growth, right? In a short period of time.
We've gone from 200 stores to almost 2,000 stores over the last 8 months.
Insane.
Yeah.
So how do you avoid burnout, or what do you do?
I'm still figuring that out. I just had a baby. So
I'm gonna get to that one.
yeah, so we went through this like crazy amount of growth while I was pregnant, like trying to navigate all of these things. And so I'm still trying to figure it out. I think that there are like pockets of time and like really cool opportunities that I get to be a part of that like make me sit there and just like think like, wow, like I am so blessed and I'm so fortunate and this is so much fun and like I can't wait to like tell my kids about this someday and show them these things. But I also think that like my family being so involved in stuff helps with that burnout, like
Mhm.
just this last weekend we needed to go to like 20 stores in Southern California and sample out the product. And like my family all went and did it. Like, and it's like stuff like that, that yeah, that it's like we like we had fun, and they were able to like let me rest and they all went and did all the stores and then they would come back at the end of the day and like tell me how it was and like even like some of my tias were like prank calling them while they were like sampling and like
Oh no.
just like all of these things. And so I think it's just stuff like that where you try to find these like bursts, and pockets of opportunities to try to avoid burnout. But I'm still working on balancing
No,
things.
and the reason why I asked that is because again, on social media, right, on the internet, we see all the like glam, like oh she's
Mhm.
at Target, oh she's at Whole Foods, like oh my god, but it's like there's stuff that happened that you had to go through to get there, right? So just to be realistic and remind people that like, hey, it's not as easy as it seems. I mean,
Yeah,
you could do it, right? But there's hard times that come with that. So
yeah,
that's why I was wondering if, what
yeah.
self-care techniques you had out there.
This shit is hard. And it is great, all of the ups that we have been able to experience, but I mean there's lots of downs and sometimes like it can be incredibly stressful. And like I said, like I just had a baby, so that was like a whole new level of stress really. But it's just one of those things where I tell myself like this isn't going to be like this forever,
Mhm.
and like you just kind of have to take advantage of it, like for better or for worse.
Yeah. And then like you said, have the right support system around you, right? That believe in your mission and your product. But hitting the motherhood.
Hmm.
Well, for me, it's motherhood and caregiver, right? With your
Yeah.
family, with your kids, your friends, everything. But with motherhood, again, I've read up on a lot of stuff, and with motherhood, we always tend to be the ones that are asked, like, hey, are you coming back to work? How long are you staying out for maternity leave? Um, and some of us have made the choice, that maybe staying home is the right decision for the family, and we decide to stay home, right? What did you go through with starting this business, running it, and navigating and being pregnant and being a mother? But this is your second child, right? Or you have
It was my first pregnancy,
okay.
but second baby. Like my nephew has been with us since he was 6 weeks old. So
Okay.
like I had practice there, but I didn't obviously have to carry
Mhm.
that child. So this was my first pregnancy, and like yeah, and doing it like in the midst of all this growth. But um Yeah, I mean, I would love to sit here and say that like my pregnancy was like well received and that it was just like a great time, but like it wasn't. Like on the backside of things, like I definitely got like bullied by like investors and things like that people just were not like really that supportive of me having a baby. Thankfully, like my team, like Team Agua Bonita, is comprised of a bunch of amazing individuals who like wanted to take things off of my plate as much as they possibly could, and like they knew that I wasn't going to get a maternity leave because we're right in the middle of fundraising, but they were just like, tell me what I can take from you and don't worry about it, you know what I mean? And I think having those people on the team like helped navigate this like time of life so much, you know better than I would have without them. Um, yeah. And so, I mean, I'm very grateful to have people on the team that like recognize that. And like, because we are a company that like was started from like my family's roots, I think everyone on the team like really prioritizes family. And like,
Mhm.
we do as a team even feel like a family, And so, um, I think that they showed up for me in the way that like family members would. And it is actually funny because every woman that has worked for Agua Bonita full time has actually been pregnant. Every single one.
Ah,
Yeah. So I
there's
think
something in the water. No, just kidding.
there's definitely like something in the water. So like it wasn't like the first. My pregnancy was not the first pregnancy that the team had even navigated. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So um, yeah,
That's what I'm saying. I guess people tend to be like, okay, well, the main person, right? The boss, the director, the head board of the organization. That, again, if it was a male figure, they wouldn't be asking him like, "Hey, are you going to come back? Are you going to stay with your kid? Is your wife going to go to work and you stay home?"
yeah,
But it's like, so how do we deal with that? Or what do you think is the best practice for Latina entrepreneurs? Because again, I think it's across the board, all women,
yeah,
but in particular minorities, right? So
yeah,
how do we
yeah.
what do we
See,
do?
for me, I mean, I hid my pregnancy for a good while because I didn't have the mental capacity to like deal with the inbound questions that I knew that were going to come my way once I did tell people that I was pregnant. And then when I finally like felt comfortable enough to share that I was pregnant, I got all of those things. But by then, like my response was like, did you not just see like what we've done while I've been
Mhm.
pregnant? So like why are you worried? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and first of all, like it's actually none of your business, and like it's my like body, my life, my choice, all those things. But even if it were any of your business, like you really don't need to worry about anything, because like we just grew so much, and every woman on the team has been pregnant, and like we did all of this while having babies. So I think like a lot of it has to like come from like this inner confidence, but I think like it's okay to like not always feel confident, and like take the
Mhm.
time to figure out like what that looks like for you before inviting in the criticism.
So make sure to acknowledge those feelings, and right. And then the thing I realized too that you did was that you delegated, and it's something that a lot of people don't do. Or did your family members just tell you, "Hey, we're going to do this for you,"
Yeah,
like
no,
when they were helping you out?
yeah, I think the team, more than anyone, were the people that were just like, we're just gonna do this, or just tell me what it is, and then we'll figure it out. So like delegation, even if it was like forced, definitely helped during this time of life.
And how's the baby now? The
He's
baby's good.
good. Yeah, he's good. When he
Working at Agua Bonita.
yeah, right. I'm gonna have him labeling boxes pretty soon.
There you go.
Yeah, no, he's good.
And then what are there any plans, or I mean, you said horchata was coming soon, but are there any other, like, any direction that you feel you're headed towards with the drink, or partnerships that you're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, I'm here, let's do this."
Yeah, I there are some interesting partnerships that we are starting to like think about and put feelers out. So I don't want to jinx anything just yet. But I think for us,
We'll send vibras buenas.
yeah. But I think for us for this next year, um, we're just really focused on doing well with like the opportunity at hand. Like we don't want to spread ourselves too thin. I think that was something that we learned this last year was like not taking on too many different things and just like focusing on like, okay, we are in these retailers, like let's really kill it there. Like let's make
Mhm.
our target business like the best that it can be. Let's make our Whole Foods business like the best that it can be. And I think that's really like our immediate focus for the time being.
Mhm. And then any advice? Again, it's just having you here. It's like I know people are going to want to hear, but like small businesses again that are in this field or any other fields, like what is something that you would recommend that they like? It's a must. Is a must as a business owner to have.
Um, I think that if you are going to raise money, like institutional capital, you really need to find some sort of like webinar, online course, or something like that to really understand the different instruments to raise money with. I wish that when I started raising money that I understood the process better than I did. If I could go back, there are a couple things that I would have changed from the beginning. And so I think like that's a huge one. If you are thinking about raising institutional capital, like start familiarizing yourself with the different ways to raise money. And then I think just in general, like a good rule of thumb is like as a small business, you're only going to be as strong as like the community you build. And so figuring out like the way that you keep a cadence with your community, whether it's like internally and investors or like consumers outwardly, like figuring out how do I talk to these people on a regular and like let them know what's happening is another big one. Like for me, I really like to use LinkedIn. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of founders tend to like send out newsletters and stuff like that on a
Mhm.
regular basis. So I think like that's a really big must too, is just like figure out how you speak to your community and like do that consistently.
Okay. And I know that Agua Bonita's flavors, they're all your babies. They're probably all your favorites. But I have a favorite. My favorite was the sweet melon
Yeah,
and the
mine too.
hibiscus second. But what's your favorite drink that you're like, okay, guys, this is the one. This is
Yeah.
like
Right now it depends. Like every day it
on the
changes.
mood.
But yeah, like right now, sweet melon is my favorite. I just drank a sweet melon a little while ago, but like just in general, I would say watermelon chile because that was one of our original flavors when we only had two SKUs. It was pineapple, cucumber, and watermelon chile, and um, it wasn't that good when we first started because
Oh,
like we couldn't get it right, and we tried
uh-huh.
over and over and over, and like I just like would not give up on it, and now it's amazing. And
Mhm.
so like I would say like that's probably the one flavor that if Agua Bonita was embodied by just one thing,
Uh-huh,
it's
yeah,
probably
just
like
one.
watermelon chili, yeah. Mhm.
Oh, nice. And they're really good mixers as well.
Mhm.
Like, if my alcoholic people 21 and over, they're, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
And
telling
we
you, I've
use
had a couple
them
already.
all the time. Yeah.
And the thing is that I really like it honestly because I'm bad at drinking water,
Mm.
right? And everybody's like, "Oh, put lemon in it or this or tea." I'm like, "Eh." But when I tasted yours, I'm like, "Oh my god, this is like perfect." Because it's what it says is it's just like fresh, it's not bubbly, it's not I don't know. It was I loved it. Maybe it
Yeah.
was like super hot out, but I was good. It was refreshing for me.
Yeah, it's a really like easy, approachable drink. It's nothing
Mhm.
crazy. You don't have to like think about all the functionalities or whatever. It's just like it tastes good, it's easy, and like it's beautiful.
And the can is super cool. Like I
Thank you.
didn't even want to throw it away. Honestly, I'm like, damn, this could work at, as Spanish people, right? I was thinking, I was like, wait, it can be like a flower vase, like
Yep.
cut the thing and then like just keep it there. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
telling you ideas. ¿Cómo es? Centro de mesas, like the table
Yeah.
centerpieces.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, we get
Everybody
used
take them
as
home.
like little vases all the time.
Yeah, it's super cool. But no, so and then something that we ask to all of our guests, right, is do you feel that you are a leader?
Um, yes, I do. I do feel like a leader, but I'm still a work in progress in that area. And I feel like every day I'm still learning how to be like a better leader, and like my team. There are people on my team that like really push me to be better. I think one of the things that like I've learned along the way is like always hire people that are like smarter and better than you at like something. And so I've learned so much from the people that work with me. And yeah, but they still look to me for guidance on stuff. And yeah, and so I think like I'm still working at being a better leader, but I do know that like my voice is important, and that like that there are people that look to me for what I'm saying and what my opinions are on things and what we're gonna do as a company. Um, yeah, and so I feel like a huge obligation in that way too.
Awesome. And then, so where can people find Agua Bonitas or follow you or website, anything that you'd like to share so that people can go out and shop, 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 especially now for, Hispanic Heritage Month is right around the corner. I
Yeah,
mean, we support all year, but we support a little louder. Ahoritica.
yeah. So you can find Agua Bonita at Whole Foods nationwide, and then if you live in California, Costco's and Targets are a good place to find us. But you can follow along or visit our website, order there. It's at Drink Agua Bonita or www.drinkaguabonita.com. And yeah, I would say follow us on Instagram. We are actually going to be announcing a WeFunder pretty soon because we've grown so much, and we want to be able to like have our community grow with us and like create generational wealth for our whole community. So keep an eye out for that. We're always doing really some cool stuff on our Instagram.
Awesome. And then something that worked for me is I have friends on the East Coast. A good, awesome feature you guys have on your website is that you could actually put like your zip code,
Mm-hmm.
and it shows you nearby like bodegas or stores that carry the drink. So make sure to go on the website and do that because it was helpful. But yeah, Kayla, so thank you so much
Of course.
for being with us, the Latina Leadership Podcast. But yeah, thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
What did you think of the conversation? If you enjoyed what you heard, let us know in the comments. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you for listening to the Latina Leadership Podcast, and we will see you next time.